Do you know them? The people whose names you're writing? She didn't look up right away. Her stick moved slowly through the wet sand, careful, deliberate, the way someone writes a name they are afraid to say out loud. The morning was pale and still. The ocean pulled back like it was breathing. Then she looked up at him, and her eyes were the kind that had cried recently and were trying very hard not to show it. "Yes," she said quietly. "They were mine." Leland Hurst stood at the edge of the dry sand, shoes still on, still wearing his jacket from the conference he'd left an hour early because something in the room had felt too loud and too hollow all at once. He was 33. He ran a design firm with 60 employees and a client list that impressed people at dinner parties. He had not sat on a beach in 4 years. He didn't walk away. He wasn't sure why. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it the way people mean it when words are genuinely insufficient. The girl, she seemed young, mid-20s, turned back to the sand. Beneath her stick, 2 names took shape in careful letters. Miriam, Dale. She finished the second one just as a small wave reached in from nowhere and pulled the edges soft. She watched it happen. She always watched it happen. "They do that every time," she murmured. Not to him, to herself, or to them. Her name was Cora Vane. She came to this stretch of Marin County Beach every Saturday morning, had been coming for 11 months, since the accident that had taken both her parents within 3 days of each other. Her mother first, her father following, in that quiet way that happens sometimes, when 2 people have lived so long beside each other that one cannot hold on without the other. Cora was a painter, or she had been. Since losing them, she hadn't picked up a brush. She came to the beach instead, wrote their names, watched the sea take them, and then walked home to her small apartment where 17 unfinished canvases leaned against the wall like questions she couldn't answer. Leland didn't know any of this yet. He only knew that something about watching her write those names, slowly, carefully, like a ritual she owed someone, made him feel the particular ache of a thing you can't name but recognize immediately. He sat down on a piece of driftwood nearby. Not close, not intrusive, just present. They were quiet together for a while. The ocean did what oceans do. He came back the following Saturday. He told himself it was because the drive cleared his head. He brought coffee, 2 cups just in case, and found her already there, stick in hand, the names half-formed. She looked at him over her shoulder. Something in her expression shifted, just barely. "You came back," she said. "I brought coffee," he offered, "in case that's acceptable." She almost smiled, almost. Cream, no sugar. He handed her the right cup without a word. He'd brought one of each. They sat on adjacent pieces of driftwood and watched the tide for a long time before either spoke again. "Why do you keep writing them if the water keeps erasing them?" he asked finally. Not unkindly, genuinely. Cora wrapped both hands around her cup. "Because every time I write them, I remember something different, something small." She paused. "Last week when I wrote my mother's name, I remembered how she folded napkins at dinner, like it mattered." Her voice was soft and level, the way voices get when emotion has been carefully contained for a long time. "If I stop writing, I'm afraid the small things will go too." Leland was quiet. Then, "That might be the most human thing I've ever heard." She looked at him. Something in the careful wall behind her eyes shifted, not collapsed, just shifted. The weeks passed like that. Slowly, honestly. 2 people finding the language of each other without rushing it. Leland learned. She had stopped painting. She had a degree from the San Francisco Art Institute. Her parents had sacrificed genuinely, working double shifts and skipping vacations to send her there. And now she couldn't touch a canvas because every image she imagined felt like something they would never see. He didn't tell her to push through it. He didn't offer advice. He just listened. In his professional life, he spoke constantly. Here, he had learned to be still. One morning, he arrived to find her not at the waterline, but sitting far up the beach, knees drawn to her chest, staring at nothing. The names weren't written. He sat beside her without asking. After a long time, she said, "I found one of my mother's sketchbooks yesterday. She drew. I never knew." Her voice broke only at the very end. "She never told me. She probably thought her drawings weren't good enough." She stopped. "She never got to know that I would have loved them anyway." Leland felt something move through him. Quietly, carefully, he said, She knew you were the artist she always wanted to be. That's why she didn't show you. Not because she was ashamed, because she was proud of you. Cora turned and looked at him for a long moment. Then she cried, genuinely, without trying to stop it, for the first time in 11 months. He didn't move. He didn't fill the space. He simply remained. What Cora didn't know, what she discovered only weeks later from a mutual acquaintance, was that Leland's firm had recently taken on a project, designing the interior identity for a new grief support center in the city. He had quietly, without mentioning it, recommended Cora's portfolio to the center's board for their gallery wall commission. He had framed it as a professional suggestion. He had not told her. When she found out, she drove to his office, the first time she'd been to that part of the city in almost a year. She stood in the doorway of his office, and he looked up from his desk. "You didn't tell me," she said. "It wasn't my story to make about myself," he said simply. She stood there a moment longer. "They want 6 paintings, Leland. 6. For people who are grieving. People who need to feel like someone understands." "I know," he said. "That's why I thought of you." She looked at him, really looked, the way she looked at the ocean on quiet mornings. "I haven't painted in almost a year," she said softly. "I know that too. What if it's not good enough?" He met her eyes. "Cora, you write your parents' names in the sand every week, knowing the water will take them, because the act of remembering matters more than whether it lasts." He paused. "Paint like that." The first painting she finished was of a shoreline at dawn. 2 names, half erased by a reaching wave, the negative space around them glowing. It hung at the center of the gallery wall. On the opening night, an elderly man stood in front of it for a very long time. When the director asked him what he saw, he said simply, "My wife." Cora, standing nearby, heard him. She reached into her bag and found, without quite knowing why she'd brought it, her mother's small sketchbook. She held it quietly against her chest. Leland stood a few feet away, watching none of it and all of it. Later, walking out along the waterfront, he said, "How does it feel?" She thought for a moment. Then, like writing their names, and the water didn't come. He nodded slowly. The city lights moved on the water. "Good," he said gently. "It was always going to feel like that eventually. Some things, grief, memory, the courage to create again, cannot be rushed. They only ask that someone sit beside you in the quiet, without agenda, without answers, and simply stay. That is the whole of kindness sometimes. Just staying." If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.